What's up, my peeps? Welcome back to episode 145 of giving me stomach and digestive problems. You guys have been begging me to do Alvin's 3-ingredient, 10-ingredient, and 30-ingredient mac and cheeses, probably the 25th mac and cheese episode we have done on the channel. As you guys know, I'm very lactose intolerant. I am down and out for at least a day or two after episodes like this. So let the gastrointestinal issues begin. Even though we've done a ton of mac and cheese recipes from Tasty, we've only done one of the 3 today. That's the 10-ingredient mac and cheese. The other 2, I'm going in completely blind, and for the 3-ingredient mac and cheese, I grabbed some whole milk, some cheddar cheese, and some shells. Now peeps, brace yourselves, this is a ton of prep work. We first have to start by measuring out whole milk, and then shred cheddar cheese. Then you're ready to go. You may be saying to yourself, there is no way a home cook like David, who's been doing this for years, can mess up this easy recipe, right? You'd be wrong. I started seeing these flakes of like dark brown film or something. I at first thought they were pieces of the pan I was using, and then I just realized the milk on the bottom was scorching in seconds. I poured everything out off camera, I skimmed off as much of that stuff as I could, and when I put it back on the heat over about medium, it started happening again. Legitimately, if you don't sit there for every second continuously mixing and keeping it over medium-low heat, it's gonna scorch and burn. I think that's inevitable. But eventually, I did get the pasta cooked with little to no burnt milk film. If done correctly, this should have been a 10-minute recipe, so let's see how it tastes. I don't really know what to make of this one. You're gonna have to take my word for it when I say that I plated this literally 2 minutes ago, and it's kind of already set on the top a little weirdly. I don't hate it, because there's not much going on, there's not much to hate, but it's not good either. I think I'd honestly rather have a box of Kraft. It needs salt, for one, but I think if you like spiced it up a little bit, some cayenne pepper, maybe some mustard powder, that would go a long way. I also feel like I like the idea, in theory, of cooking it in the milk and just making the sauce with that, but it's kind of a pain. As you saw, it scorches so easily. You have to keep it over such a low temperature, sit there stirring for like 10 minutes. Probably not worth it, but hopefully the next 2 will make up for this one. Up next today, we've got a 10-ingredient mac and cheese, which, as I mentioned, we have done before. It's Lawrence Page's, and I believe I've done it all the way back in 2017. It'll be nice to have a refresher though, so I grabbed some elbows and more cheddar, butter, salt and pepper, feta cheese, mozzarella, smoked Gouda and evaporated milk, mild provolone, and a couple eggs. As you could imagine, each one of these is gonna get much more excessive with the number and volume of cheese we're gonna use. This one's got 5 different kinds. You need 2 tablespoons of feta, you need a cup of the cheddar, mozzarella, and provolone, and then a half cup of the smoked Gouda, which is honestly one of my least favorite cheeses. In my opinion, it's very easy to overdo and it'll overpower all the other cheeses, so go light at first. I boiled my elbows for about 3 minutes less than the box recommends. Remember, we are going to cook this in the oven afterwards, and I don't want a big block of mush. And unlike the last recipe, this one should have plenty of seasoning throughout. We started with that super salty boiling water, we dumped in an entire stick of salted butter, and then came behind with some more salt and pepper before anything else went in. To the warm pasta, I dumped in all 5 of my cheeses, gave it a bit of a stir so it can begin the melting process. And then the base of your cheese sauce is going to be 3 eggs and then 1 12-ounce can of evaporated milk. I think I've said this before, but personally, I'd much rather have a stovetop mac and cheese because I feel like all the ones in the oven just dry up, and I'd rather have a cheese sauce than just like a dry, crumbly pasta that tastes like cheese. I honestly don't remember how this one came out last time, but I'm hoping the eggs and milk will prevent this from getting too dry. Something about bubbly, toasted cheddar cheese like this just gets my mouth salivating. I know how bad this stuff is for my insides, but when it looks and smells this good, I don't really care. So let's give it a shot. This might sound stupid, but whenever I have a mac and cheese like this, my mind just goes to like casserole. almost, because it's like baked and you have to cut it into pieces, and I just, for some reason, my brain always thinks of cheese sauce when I hear the words mac and cheese. I know it's nobody else's fault, it's a me problem, I gotta work on it. Yeah, I really like the flavor of this one. No one cheese comes through more than the other, except the cheddar on top, for obvious reasons. Seasoned really well. It was relatively easy. I love this extra outer crust that the cast iron gives you too. That was a really good call, Alvin. As y'all probably expected, this one ranks miles ahead of that first recipe. Lastly, we have a behemoth of a 30 ingredient mac and cheese recipe. And to make it, you are going to need some flour and farfalle pasta, more shells and rotel pasta, kosher salt, panko breadcrumbs, garlic powder, onion powder, cheddar cheese, Colby cheese, black pepper, 4 cans of evaporated milk, fresh chives and bacon, Gruyere and Gouda cheeses, some mustard and Parmesan, crushed red pepper flakes, cayenne pepper, ground nutmeg, smoked paprika, white pepper, butter, garlic, a lemon, and some parsley. I am exhausted. I guess it's only right that the world's most ridiculous, excessive mac and cheese recipe starts with the world's most overly excessive breadcrumb topping. I started with about a ½ pound of chopped up bacon and got that nice and crispy, before dumping in 5 cloves of garlic, and then flicking in about a teaspoon of those chili flakes, 2 cups of panko breadcrumbs, salt and pepper, about a tablespoon of lemon zest, and then about 2 tablespoons of chopped up parsley. Just this alone is going to be an absolute flavor bomb, so I probably won't be that generous when topping the finalized macaroni with it. Admittedly, it does smell really great though. So moving on to our pasta. This recipe calls for 1 1/3 pounds of pasta. Again, good luck if you don't have a kitchen scale. And also, I've never even heard of this pasta champanelle. So I just subbed it out for some rotel pasta because they look somewhat similar. We're gonna melt down a few tablespoons of butter to make a roux. Now I assumed that we were eventually gonna turn this into a sauce mornay, which is basically just a bechamel plus cheese, and I was wrong. This is basically just going to be a thickened custard with that roux, some salt and pepper, 3 cans of the evaporated milk, and then a whole bunch of those spices from before. Once that was looking nicely thickened and not scorched like the milk in the first recipe, I took it off the heat and started to tend to all of my cheeses. For the first time today, we are not going to shred our cheeses, but instead cube them, and you're gonna want equal parts of the cheddar, Colby, Gruyere, and Gouda. Yes, I know, I showed you that enormous block of cheddar at the beginning, and that's because we're gonna need almost an entire extra cup to go on top of this, as well as a full cup of the Parmesan, but I'll just grate those right on top at the end. Once I had all 4 of my cheeses somewhat evenly cubed, I folded them into my pasta. I dumped over that still warm bechamel plus 5 or 6 different spices. I finished it off with a little sprinkling of the last can of evaporated milk, as well as my 2 different cheeses. And finally, this is going to get thrown in a 425-degree oven for about 40 minutes. But beware, this started browning really quickly on me, so I had to cover it up with some foil so the top didn't burn. And if all those flavors and different ingredients weren't enough, we have to top it with chives, which, according to the video, makes 30 ingredients. Man, if I had a blindfold on and somebody put this under my nose, I don't think I'd be able to guess what it was. It is something else. I also think there might be more cheese in here than there is pasta. I kinda love it. I know I complained about how much liquid there was when I poured it in the pan, but that pretty much solved my issue with dry casserole-like mac and cheese. This is not dry at all. I kinda love the little pockets of cheese versus just a kinda homogeneous custardy cheese sauce. And I thought the different kinds of pastas were a little bit gimmicky, just like they were thrown it in to get the number of ingredients higher. But I kind of love that too. It's like each bite is different. It's got a different texture because the pastas cook at a different time. The only thing I'd pull back on is the breadcrumb topping. There's too much of it, for one, and I only used half of that mix. There's way too much garlic in there. If you get too much breadcrumb, that's all you taste. Get rid of the lemon zest. The frickin' chives and even the parsley is a little unnecessary. I don't mind a crunch, but it's a little overkill. Other than that though, I mean, what's not to like? I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, leave me a like. I do apologize, this video is probably a day late. I've been working on a lot of stuff at once, so you will see it all very shortly. Follow me over on Instagram and Twitter if you don't already. Other than that, have a fantastic weekend, and I will see you right back here next time. Peace.
With the M without the AD. Flipping burgers and my money super lazy. Try and make a meal tonight, they ain't paying me. Try and supersize my life with my A-team. Yeah, our style wasn't wavy, but we had a vision. We could make it